I don't think anyone in the world is really prepared for the oncoming, onslaught of agents across every part of our life,
Yeah.
and AI.
All right. So, welcome everyone to Chat Are We Cooked, where we talk about how on-chain gaming is in fact not cooked. Today is episode 2, and I am joined by the one and only Loaf. Thank you very much for taking the time. We are going to talk
Yeah.
about AI agents today. Before we do, could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Loaf. I've been building systems for a long time in companies and organizations. The last 3 years, I've kind of spent building on-chain games, specifically the Realms ecosystem, which led to the creation of the Dojo game engine.
All right, very cool. I've divided this episode into two areas of interest. The first one will be more about how AI agents will affect gaming and gamers directly.
Mm.
And then the second part, just kind of checking out Eliza and Daydreams from
Hmm.
a development perspective. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Let's take it a step back and begin with
Yeah.
the basics. Could you explain what
Mm.
exactly AI agents are in a few very simple
Mm.
sentences?
All they are is just your LLM, large language model, whether it's GPT or it's Claude or Llama or whatever. When you go and speak on ChatGPT, when you're talking to it, that's the large language model that you talk to, right? And so all an agent is that you take that and you basically wrap it in some software and you create a program around it that kind of loops, and then you attach some memory to it, and it really becomes around software design at that point. There, what's really interesting is that you can make the large language model build its own flow, so you can get it to autonomously act and call functions and post on Twitter, post on Discord, trade and whatnot. But really, all it is just a model in a loop with some memory.
And so oftentimes these concepts seem abstract to the actual consumers, or in this case, the gamers. Could you walk us through what it will look like to game with AI agents?
There's definitely some pushback around it, this inevitability of agents that will exist in your game. And these aren't just like the bots that are just going to be programmed by a couple of nerds that they're just going to break the game. It's not like that at all. There's a whole new design space that's opened up with these things. It's not just they're going to play the game against you, or they're going to be an NPC, or they're going to play the game with you, or whatnot. Those are three things, but like there's so many more things these agents and these models can do. They could literally create the game in front of you whilst you're playing it. Give you an example. So Eternum is this like hex-based 4X game, similar to Civilization, but that whole game's fully on chain, and you start off as a realm and you harvest resources and you pull them out and you try to conquer people and whatnot. And so what we're going to do in that game is we're going to create a bunch of agents as NPCs, and they'll be guarding kind of like tokens. But each one of these little NPCs will be their own little entity, and they'll be able to move their armies around. They'll be able to attack people. You'll be able to communicate with them. You might even be able to convince them to join your war effort, or they might just say, "Piss off, go and try to kill them," or they might kill you.
Yeah,
Um,
that's amazing.
but yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun because it creates this always on world, and I won't know what they're going to do. I'm going to program maybe like their personality traits, whether they're aggressive, whether they're
Mhm.
agreeable or whatnot, and it'll just totally randomize it and just like chuck them in. Maybe one of them survives. Maybe it's like, and then we like immortalize that character forever. And we'll see which one that is.
Wow, very, very
So
interesting.
yeah, so like yeah, super dynamic NPCs in games, I think is really like a really cool design space. And then like cooperative agents, it's like, oh, you should probably build this, or you should go and explore this area. But it's there's nothing predefined about what they say. They would be understanding and contextualizing your whole world, like
Mhm.
everything that you're doing in the game. They understand the game and they'll propose maybe you should be doing this or maybe you should be doing
Mhm.
that. Nothing predefined. They'll come up with that decision themselves.
I was thinking about it. I like to game because it's more of an active activity. Like I don't just sit in front of the TV and consume something. Like I can actually use my brain. If we use agents, what will be the point of gaming if we don't have to think or strategize anymore?
That's a good question. And I think it comes back to this new design scope of games, right? And it depends what type of game you want to play. A game like maybe a single player game or even a strategy game like a Eternum, we could have a round where instead of you playing as a human, you're basically guiding agents, right? And
Mhm.
you guide agents by, it becomes like a very macro game. Instead of you clicking around and doing things, you basically design and help them play the game. So like you build a strategy, and maybe the game plays it out over a day, and since someone wins, and then you keep refining your strategy. So it becomes a very like, yeah, it becomes like a very macro game of giving instructions to the agent. And that in itself is a metagame. And so it's a new type of game where instead of you playing the game directly, you're kind of strategizing and giving these like macro decisions to the agent to play the game.
Why is it that on-chain games are the ideal playground for agents?
Some of the reasons why we build on-chain games is like their open nature, right? Like they're, anyone can come and build an alternative, interface for them, or they can come and extend the game in a specific way. And they can do that because the entire game is running on the blockchain, and like to interact with the game, it's all public. And that turns out is like, because everything's public, these things can just plug directly into agents. Like the interface for the agent to play the game already exists. And if you like contrast that with regular game, say like Minecraft, you probably would have seen some demos of agents playing Minecraft. Now, to get an agent to play Minecraft, you have to build a whole new server for the agent to play the Minecraft with. You can't just get an agent to play in Minecraft directly. You have to build like this middleware. Now, that middleware doesn't have to get created with on-chain games because you can just interface with the game directly with this open API. So that's really helpful. And so just, you can just accelerate the agents to play the games because of that. But the other part, which is a bit more subtle, is like, this is kind of one of my epiphanies with agents in on-chain games, is that there's this level of financialization to on-chain games, right? Whether people like it or not, everything on the blockchain has some value which can be prescribed back to ETH, back to US dollars, or whatever currency you're in, right? Like this is matrix of value transfer. And so when we put agents in a game, you're putting them in an environment where there's like a defined kind of gain function, which is like profit, get resources. And that in itself isn't much, but then when you chuck developers at that, you'll get this like acceleration of agents playing the game because there's this inherent like profit kind of motive to it. Whether it's small or big, it doesn't really matter. It's still there. And so that's a really interesting property. We will get a lot of this acceleration of agent design by people playing on-chain games for that fact.
Before we check out Eliza and Daydreams, I have one last question. As you mentioned, there's some pushback on this agent hype and general skepticism. I like to think back in the history of some industry, in this case gaming, where there was a similar situation that this new emerging technology came up and it actually revolutionized the industry without anyone who saw it coming. Is there like an instance that can be compared to what's happening right now with on-chain gaming and agents?
I don't think anyone in the world is really prepared for the oncoming, onslaught of agents across every part of our life. And AI. I'm not just hyping it up. It's not just going to be in crypto. We're just a tiny part of this, really. The difference with AI and pretty much every other technology is that we've never been able to come up with like something that can replace our like cognition. Like we've always come up with something that, allows us to, save energy in another aspect, like human labor to animal labor, then animal labor to coal, and then coal to electricity or whatever. Right. There's always been this like jump, but it's always been like we've never been able to replace ourselves, like the way we think. Right. And this is the first time where like we actually can replace like our actual thinking, and it's coming incredibly fast. I don't think that we're people understand how fast this is coming unless like you're really down in the weeds building this stuff every day, and seeing all the research papers and everything coming out. Like this stuff is moving at breakneck speeds.
Well, what a time to be alive. So you mentioned it previously. Eliza has kind of taken over Twitter for a while now. Could you just briefly explain what it is, what it does?
So Eliza was the first viral AI framework in the crypto space. It's very simple to build on kind of agent architecture that allowed you to, create Twitter bots and Discord bots quite easily. And its kind of architecture is this like plugin design, which allowed networks and external services to build digital plugins for which then allowed your Eliza agent to, incorporate, whatever service you want. So, you can swap on Starknet, you can swap on an EVM chain, you can swap on Solana or whatever. Or you can like, you can order pizza. And so it's a very useful architecture for broad adoption. And so it accelerated the whole space massively. It's got a lot of really great developers working on it. So yeah, I mean, it's an agent architecture, but there are a lot of agent architectures out there as well. But I think what people liked about it was its simplicity. And the kind of like the Trojan horse for it was the Twitter bots. Like a bot that works with you in Google Docs or something isn't that interesting. But like a bot that can like shit post on Twitter was actually pretty interesting. People hadn't seen that. So everyone kind of liked it, and it just kind of exploded, and all those things were everywhere, and they're kind of annoying. But
Yeah, I
Um,
remember Blobber just like turning into this absolute savage out of nowhere, and I was like, "What's happening?"
yeah,
And then I realized that this.
yeah, he was a savage to you. I remember some of his comments to
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
He
yeah, he
was
was.
brutalized you.
Yeah, I'm. It's rough out here.
Yeah, after working on Eliza, I started working on Daydreams because I needed to I needed to build this agent to play a tournament.
Mm,
And so I kind of had to go in a slightly different direction because it needed to be a bit more fluid and a bit more dynamic. And so that kind of led me to the Daydreams design, which is this thing called the chain of thought process. And what that means is that when you ask the agent to do something, instead of it just like replying to you, it designs like this big structure of tasks that it needs to do.
mhm,
It's like so you could be like, okay, win at a tournament, and then it thinks, okay, well, how do I win at a tournament? It's like, well, I need to, get the points for a hyperstructure. I need to like, get enough points to win the game. Well, how do I get enough points? Well, I need to build a hyperstructure. Well, how do I build a hyperstructure? Well, I need to, harvest special minerals. How do I harvest special minerals? Well, then I need to build my realm up. How do I build my realm up? I need to build, resources, buildings on my realm. And so there's like this like tree structure of like how it needs to win
mhm,
the game, right? And this structure might go over like a week, right? Like, to win a tournament, it's like a long time. And so you need this like big prompt tree. You need this like big task tree of it, and it needs to like work through them bit by bit.
mhm,
And so that's kind of what Daydreams is trying to do, is it's trying to create this like architecture that allows agents to solve really complex problems over
mhm,
like a long period of time. And so these aren't just going to be like little reply bots, like they're going to attempt to, complete a task over an extended period of time. And
mhm,
it turns out to do that, you need to have like a very fluid structure in how it can call external functions. Like the agent itself, like in Eliza and pretty much most agent frameworks, um, and I suspect this is the only reason that hasn't been done until now, is that the models haven't quite been good enough, or they've been too expensive. Um, but what you can do is you can allow the agent to design its own function calls. And so instead of you having to predefine, like, call this action when this happens, or call this when this happens,
mhm.
like that doesn't work in a game environment. You need to allow the agent to design like the whole, like everything that it wants to do, and just execute freely and dynamically, and just like learn from how it plays. And so Daydreams kind of it designs its own function calls and then calls the functions. And so I just kind of give it this big like text file of like how it can play the game,
Mhm.
and then it just figures out basically how to play the game.
Okay.
Um, yeah, which is pretty cool. But that could extend like games are like my kind of thinking around all this was like games are a really hard problem because there's an infinite amount of ways to play
Mhm.
them, really. Like everyone's going to play a game slightly differently.
Yeah.
So every agent is going to play them slightly differently. So it's a very like hard problem to solve. So I was thinking, like, if we could solve this problem of like these agents being able to play a game and design the software in order to enable that,
Mhm.
then this same design should be able to do pretty much everything else as well. Like, maybe like a triple cross chain swap arbitrage or something crazy,
Yeah.
right? You don't like you can't really define that. You just want to give the agent all the available tools and like the ability to do it, and then you just
And
tell
it'll
it to do
just
it.
figure it out. Yeah.
You just figure it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so looking into the future, what do you think is the end game of this combination of on-chain gaming and AI agent?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I think they're well, this first year. I think this year we'll see a lot of experimentation and like useful agents and a lot of entertainment, which is really what we're doing, right? I'm just
Mm,
games and entertainment, right? I'm trying to make it as fun and as chaotic and full of drama as possible. And agents are a great way to do that. So that's why I'm going to use them. And also they help people play the game, so it's,
mm,
more fun. Um, I think I mean, I don't know. Someone's already figured out how to play Loot Survivor with it. So
oh
that's going to
wow.
be a little crazy. Yeah. So I think the Loot Survivor metagame might just become, well, how good is your prompt in order to help play the game?
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty good analogy of like this new type of gameplay.
Mm,
So you kind of move away from clicking the buttons and just move it to like creating the strategy and playing with the agent. seeing how it plays and then adjusting and whatnot. Um, yeah, but I think they're about to be prevalent in everything,
Yeah.
to be honest. I think everybody's going to experiment with them. Some probably more successful than others. Um, but yeah, I think we're like, yeah, but the agent software goes far beyond games, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think that the combination of just the model software and memory, as we level up the models, as OpenAI and Meta and stuff increase improve these models to the next generation, they're going to get better instantly.
Yeah.
So then as soon as you drop them into your agent architecture, your agent is suddenly better.
Yeah.
And then the speed of these models is also going to increase. And so the latency for these agents to do things is going to, decrease. And so they're going to be able to do more things better, faster. And yeah, I think by the end of this year, I honestly think by the end of this year, shit's going to get real crazy.
It
Um,
already has, to be fair. It's like,
yeah, but it hasn't penetrated like every part of
that's true.
like it's still like very like um, it's still very much like, oh, I have a product, I'm going to shove
Yeah.
AI into it.
Yeah.
I think we're about to experience like just product totally built from the ground up,
Yeah.
incorporating AI. I think that's the only way that we're really going to get their benefit. Is that
Mhm.
like you can't just like take a product and shove AI on it. Like, it doesn't really work. It's like you got to like build a thing up from the ground with
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and just like use natural language as the interface for pretty much everything now.
Mhm.
So like every bit of soft software that you use will just get totally redesigned just
Mhm.
to purely be natural language.
Yeah.
Everything will. Um,
All
uh,
right.
yeah,
Exciting, exciting times ahead.
yeah.
But so now for gamers who are actually interested in trying out
Mm.
these agents, when and where will they be able to do that?
If you jump into their Daydreams Discord, it's pretty it's just a developer focused Discord at the moment. You'll be able to see some interesting experiments going on.
Mhm.
We're hoping to, but yeah, we're going to be shipping them in the Eternum season one, which will be like, early March.
Mhm.
So that'll probably be one of the first like major on-chain games with it, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Um, so yeah,
All right, then we'll try to get our audience to play.
yeah. But no one should be intimidated by agent software. Like, if you're a developer and listening to this, like, you should just go into your cursor um, environment and ask the internal agent in there to build you a Discord agent, and it will do it. Like, and you'll totally understand like how simple these things can be.
Yeah.
It probably won't be very good, but it just goes to show that like all these things really are like a clever software design plus a model. There's no fancy wizardry here that
Mhm.
nobody can understand. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to be a machine learning engineer to understand agent architecture, that's for sure.
Okay. Very good. It sounds like a win-win for both devs and gamers at this point.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting time.
all right. Well, I don't have any questions anymore. Thank you very much. It's extremely interesting insights. Do you have anything you'd
Hmm.
like to add or any other questions that you feel would be good to mention?
No, I think we covered everything. Just if you are a developer, don't be shy and really try to understand what these things are. And maybe you'll be able to come up with some new design that's even better and simpler and whatnot.
And do you have like a final note to gamers?
Don't be shy of the agents, I guess. Um, just embrace the agents. They're coming whether you like them or not.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
All right.
You won't be able to stop them coming. So embrace them.
All right. Well, thank you very much. For the viewers who have questions, just comment down below and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Loaf, thank you very much for taking the time and answering all my questions. I will see everyone again for episode 3 as soon as possible.
Great. Thanks for having me.